Start off strong, as they say. Hey, hello everybody, welcome. It is UK Cowboys TV. It's season 2, episode 105. This week it is a free agency review, looking at the Cowboys roster as well as what's on the free agent market for teams looking to try and clear a bit of the cap space with the way things are going this year with the reduced cap. But in order to do it, I've got the double Scottish, the Iron and the Brew this week. We've got Mr. Paul Stewart.
I like that one. I like it.
See, every week you get something different.
That's the best one, mate. That's got to be the best one.
That's the best. Okay. I'll try and keep something like that going for you guys then. Yeah, so we got Paul and Graham. You all know him. And, of course, we've got probably over in America one of our closest Cowboys creators over there with Cowboy Zone with Brandon. We have Mr. Marcus with us, Bluff City Cowboys. How you doing, brother? Long time no see.
Hey guys, thank you for letting me join you today. It's always good to talk some Cowboys sports and news with you guys. So it's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Well, it's been too long. So we had to get you back. Although you are going to be back again. We've spoken about that, and we'll get into that a bit later with that situation going on. But yes, this week, free agency review. Free agency is the market is due to open on March the 17th. So we're looking about 2 weeks away. So not that far away. But the reason we is I think you guys would agree that PFF did rankings of all the NFL teams. Sort of last 6 years, and in terms of, I think they were second in that.
Mate, sorry, mate, you were getting cut off there, and yeah, I think you're getting cut off there, dude.
PFF did their rankings on basically. Teams in the last 6 years that have drafted the best. Cowboys actually rank second. So in terms of drafting, everything's fine. So when you look at it, you go, well, where are the Cowboys? If they're drafting so well, where's it going wrong? The big thing for me, I don't know if you guys all agree, is the free agent market. Mm-hmm. Cowboys just seem to just fall apart at that point. What do you guys take on that?
Yeah, pretty much. It may look great on when you mention the names and stuff like that, but I can't really recall the last big free agent, like a big name we brought in that's actually delivered. To be honest, I can't even recall. Like,
I think a lot of the time the Cowboys kind of shop in the discount bin. You know, the kind of B and C list of free agency. They don't go for the high flyers. And part of that comes down to salary cap. I mean, we tend to keep our guys. Mm-hmm. Think of the money we have tied up on the offensive line. We're going to have so much money tied up in wide receiver potentially. We have Dak Prescott to negotiate with as well. So we don't have a great deal of ammunition at this time of year, which is why we have to draft well. We tend to keep our guys. Sometimes we tend to overpay just out of loyalty, I think.
Mm-hmm,
and we don't always get the best bang for our buck in the second contract. And that's what keeps us out of the postseason.
I would agree.
Yeah. And
yep, absolutely.
To add on to that, I just think our ownership has tunnel vision when it comes to the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah,
he likes the flash. He likes the big names, and normally those come on offense. So whenever we go through trades or free agency or the draft, he's always looking for a name that can sell jerseys. Because
I mean, I think the best of my recollection in terms of defensive side that had flash was Dion.
Yeah,
I think he was the only defensive player that actually managed to sell more jerseys than our offense at that point. Because so I think that just comes to show is like everyone just keeps thinking it's like offense, that like wide receivers, running back, quarterback, they'd really be the most marketable type of players, but whenever we ever really invested in a star-studded player in our defense, it's pretty much been non-existent really. Like you could say D-Law, but
yeah,
it's not. But
that's close. Yeah, but
yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is surprising because you think if they just got that bit right, then you're looking at a team really that is playing, playing football in January, but instead we're getting stuck all the time. So we'll go through it and we'll see where it goes right, where it goes wrong. We'll look at some values and then we'll take it from there. First of all, though, as we do every week, we start with the news and updates from the week. So the first one, and I'll get everybody's take on this and we'll move on to the next one, is the Russell Wilson talk. A lot of people saying, now for me, I think Russell Wilson saying what he said is more of him wearing a Bernie branch and like saying, listen, I want you to draft offensive linemen. If you don't, what do you guys take on the whole Russell Wilson talk saying he wants to...
Smoking mirrors, mate. Oh, Mike has this. Yep, Mike's disappeared again.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go on and say it. I think it's all. I believe it's all smoking mirrors. To be honest, it's just.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it's always been targeted to like Cowboys related. Anything when it comes to like any scenario, when it comes to a quarterback and situation, like you're always going to hear a wee mention about the Cowboys, and it's got a bit blown out of proportion. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if we do like move, like I'm just saying, for example, right? If we were to kind of move along from I can get Russell Wilson, then yeah, great. We've got still got a good high caliber quarterback, but it makes no sense in terms of when you think about it. Like we'd be taking on his big contract, and like either way, it's like where would you go with it, if you know what I mean? Like I don't know, but like I said, I think it's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah,
in terms of the media,
it's the perfect storm for silly season. You know, the media will jump on any story they can.
Right.
Yeah, JJ Watt's an example. Mind a lot of people wanted him.
The QB carousel is in full swing. There is no way Russell Wilson is leaving Seattle. If Russell Wilson leaves Seattle, there will be protests outside of CenturyLink.
Oh,
absolutely no way will the 12s allow him to leave Seattle.
But I mean, the thing is they have the front office. They have tried. Like they wanted to try and get Pat Mahomes, and they wanted to try and get Josh Allen. So they have attempted in the draft to move on from Russ.
I don't. Why though? Like Russell Wilson's actually been one of the best players over these years. I don't understand.
I don't know if Marcus will agree with me on this, but for me, I think it's Pete Carroll ball. Pete Carroll ball and Russell Wilson ball are completely two different types of offenses. What do you reckon, Marcus?
I agree with that to an extent. And also just as a quarterback, like you just said, Pete Carroll has his way, Russell Wilson has his way. If you're the quarterback and the coach is not letting you get input on what's going on, the only option you really have is I want to go somewhere else. Even though that's not going to happen, because, again, like you guys all said, Russell Wilson's the man in Seattle. They haven't had a quarterback like that in forever. And they've had more success under him than they've ever had. It's not going to happen, but that's the only bargaining chip he has.
Yeah.
And, like someone said in the comments, when you say the Cowboys name, that always makes a story light up.
Absolutely. Yep.
Even if there's no chance of it happening.
Even though it's completely false. Absolutely. Right. I mean, I'm maybe jumping drum shit, but when you just kind of said the magic word there when it comes to if the coach, like the staff, or like when it comes to, and the quarterback, if the quarterback's not getting what he wants to kind of help the franchise. Take the example of Deshaun Watson. He's asking for help within the Texans, and he's not getting it. He's like, if you're not going to help me, I want to leave. I want to go to a team that's going where I can help, and they're going to provide me with that help. And it's and you're seeing the turmoil, what is happening in Houston right now.
Yeah.
So, and the way how things are going with Seattle, you just don't know what's going to happen now. Right. But
and looking at Houston's situation, even as awful as that looks, I still don't think Watson's leaving because he's a franchise quarterback. He can do whatever or say whatever he wants. They can cut everybody on their team. He's not going anywhere. He has no rights. But the only leverage he has is to say he wants to go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's it.
That is true. Now, we'll move on to the next bit of news, but we'll just leave it at that point with the news is that the Dak talk is going well at the moment. Apparently, there's a lot of talks going on and things are progressing. There was also some news that he wanted somewhere like second quarterback. So you're looking somewhere between 40 and 44 mil a year, but we'll get to that a bit later. The other one as well is the virtual combine is taking place. So that will be interesting. Medicals interviews more than anything. As you say, what's that? Yeah. Free agency market opens in 2 weeks as well. Another bit of news that came out I found quite interesting that came out the other morning was the NFL's medical advisors have turned around and they said they cannot see the NFL opening the stadium up to full capacity for crowds across the league. So that's a bit of interesting news. But also what came out as well is Gerald McCoy news, talking about trying to get back together again. So that's some good news as well.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy about that, to be honest. Like McCoy really wanted to come and make an impact in that. And it's just unfortunate that he picked up a season injury. An injury that took him out for the whole season. And obviously got caught for business reasons, for the cap and whatever, not to bring other players in and etc. But I'm just really happy that if we can get McCoy in, because his experience alone just can help elevate, like Tristan Hill, Anton Woods, you name it. Like just having that type of guy in can make a hell of a lot of a difference for an interior nose tackles.
Yep.
Oh yeah, definitely. But we'll get into the free agency and we'll bring Gerald McCoy up when we get to the interior line. So let's start off, guys, looking at the Cowboys roster, which is really where we'll begin right at the very top. As we said, I get onto this, is the Dak deal. Now, according to Sport Track, Dak at the moment currently has a market value of just shy of 38 million, which is fine. I can live with that. I can live with even them paying more because this is the NFL, stands for not for long, and that includes your rankings of the salary cap. There was a time when Tony Romo got signed, and a lot of people were saying how much that was, and then look at it now. Would have been you won't get a backup for that amount. But let's get everyone's take. Let's get the first take. Would you agree in terms of free agencies, Dak is the most important at the moment?
Yeah.
Oh, without a doubt.
No question.
Without a doubt.
No question.
Yeah.
No question about it.
Now, I mean, obviously, I know your take, Paul and Graham, on this one. For you, Marcus, since you're the guest, these pair have talked extensively about Dak on this show already. What's your take on getting Dak signed, and where and the amount would you sign him to?
All right, let me give you guys some good news before all the chaos starts.
Hit it.
In the United States, this is about the stadium's opening. In the United States,
yes,
the governor of Texas has announced that the mask mandates are over.
Yep.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
That means they're going to open up the state of Texas pretty soon. And if that happens by the time we get to September, Jerry Jones is going to have 1 million people in that stadium if he can. And whatever Jerry Jones does, the rest of the league follows. So I know that story says the league is not going to see the stadiums opening. If Jerry Jones sets the tone for it, it's going to happen.
It's literally follow the leader, pretty much.
Exactly. And Jerry Jones is the Pied Piper.
Yep.
That is true.
So
that is true.
Yeah. So back to the Dak talk.
Yes.
I just want to put that out there because
you keep going a minute and I'll be right back. But let us give us your Dak take.
Okay. So in terms of Dak, I don't normally do a lot of Dak talk because it's just such a hot button issue. But in my opinion, the value is the value. I know people want to compare him to this player or that player. You have to compare him to where the market dictates he should be paid at. And if that price is 25 million or 45 million, That's what the market dictates. And on top of that, you can put whatever number you want to on there because you can manipulate the cap however you like. If Dak only wants 3 years, give him a 4-year deal. Make the last 2 years expensive to where the team will say, yes, we'll pay you that 4th year, or we'll cut you, or we'll extend you. But the average amount per year, that means nothing unless you're talking about a 1-year deal, which we're not. If Dak signs for 4 years, you can make year 5 $50 million. Now, by the time we get to year 4 or 5, the cap may actually explode to the point where that's the going rate anyway.
Yeah.
But you use that number to make the average go up, because all the agent and all the agent really cares about is what I can report in the media. And if the agent can report whether Dak's first year is 20 million because of how they structure the cap, if he can say my player has a $42 million a year contract, it's a good day for him.
Yeah.
So the numbers really don't matter. It's really just how they structure it. Now, I know we hear all these rumors about this is the reason why it hasn't been done. That's the reason. We really don't know. But I feel like it's going to happen because Dak's just that good of a player and he's that important to the team.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like I said, the numbers will be what they'll be. We just have to wait to see how they iron out the structure.
I find that I find that it's going to be very difficult, just even for Dak to I know he wants to stay because he's built that relationship within the organization, and for him, if he was to go somewhere else, he's literally going to be starting from ground zero again. And I don't think he really wants that. When it comes to the whole contract, the media, the agent can come, like you said there, they can come in and says, yeah, he'll be averaging 42 a year, but it really, behind the scenes, he could actually be on 20 this season, then 30 in the next season, and then the last two, like you're saying, the last 2 years to be explosive. Then that's where you can restructure it once again, pretty much. Maybe add an extension depending what that is, and it's just give him the initial contract that he wants, and further down the line, then if we can add an extension to that, then great, So
Right.
But yeah, I totally agree, mate. Totally agree.
On paper, Drew Brees has been making $35 million a year for the past 5 years. I guarantee you, he hasn't made half, not 1 year.
Yeah, and I think one of the issues that I think as well with everyone with paying, Dak, is the issue is this 40 million and around that. People talking about the value, but you have to remember.
It's the market.
It's the way it rolls, right? Don't forget that, it was only 4 years ago, Jimmy Garoppolo set the market. He's barely a top 10 quarterback in terms of salary now.
Right.
That's how quickly it turns around. I can remember when Peyton Manning was the top paid quarterback in the league, right? He was getting paid $8 million a year.
Yep. It's a big difference now.
Huge.
And just to put this in comparison, when you compare the other two quarterbacks that were picked before Dak that are now with two different teams now, Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, look at their contracts. And are you meant to tell me that Dak Prescott, and this is my personal opinion, but are you meant to tell me that for what Dak Prescott has done in his 4 years with the small minimum contract of his fourth, being a fourth rounder, pretty much, he's exceeded way above expectations than these two first round supposed to be blue chip players who have now been traded to other teams? Nah, I'm sorry, I don't believe it for a second. When you really kind of think about it, Dak deserves to be paid more than those two quarterbacks easily when you think about it, and the whole perspective of things. Don't get me wrong, Jared Goff got to a Super Bowl, but in terms of ability-wise, I don't think he's a better quarterback than Dak. But that's just my take. I don't know what you guys think about that, because from that perspective, and way the market is going, if we were to give Dak $41 million a season, and I think if we were to franchise tag him, it'll be $38 million. Is that correct?
Yeah,
yes.
Like even if we give him $3 million and he's getting $41 million a year, like that's like, how can people argue with that?
right.
Like you want to offer more than the franchise tag to get him on the long-term deal, pretty much.
Right. Because if you don't, the franchise tag on year 3 jumps to almost 50 million.
Exactly.
That's right.
And we don't want that.
We definitely don't want that.
And then what's funny is if you sit there then and you do the math on that for him being franchise tagged for 3 years in a row, take what he earned and divide it by 3, it ends up being about 40 million a year.
Right.
You know, we're just doing quick math, that is, of course.
Yeah.
But I do think we did an episode about 2 or 3 episodes ago, and all it was about quarterbacks. And we may as well get your take while you're here, Marcus, on what you think. But if Dak isn't signed long term by April 29th, do you think that for all what we're talking about is out the window and we have to go and get ourselves a quarterback in the draft, which could even mean trading up?
That's a very tough situation to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll lean towards no, only because I know our owner and he loves the drama, and he'll take it to the 9.99th hour to get a deal done, just so that when it happens, he'll be the center of attention.
Yep.
So I feel like the draft will actually tell us where we are with Dak if we don't have a deal done. But I feel like either way, we probably won't take a quarterback.
I agree.
Yeah, I just worry about it, and when I look at it, I think it's gonna go that way. That's just how I see it.
Like, don't get me wrong, Mike. It is a possibility, but I do find that, like, I completely agree with Marcus here. I think it's going to be unlikely because that's the way Jerry is. Like, and I'm thinking from Mike McCarthy's perspective, he's only like managed to work with that for pretty much like half a season, really.
Yeah.
And he was like, one of the reasons he came over here was it was the chance to work with these type of players that he had, like Dak, like Zeke, like Cooper. Now we've got CD Lamb now. Like, he's like, for him as a head coach, he's got something like potentially very special ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to, and for him, if he was to go back and get a brand new quarterback down in the line, you're pretty much restarting once again.
Yeah, 100%.
Rather than building that foundation that we've got.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we can talk about Dak. I think maybe eventually before the draft, if he isn't signed by then, we'll dedicate an entire show on that. Because, I mean, you could just talk about that one until the cows come home. But one of the other quarterbacks that's on the roster, or was, and now a free agent, was Andy Dalton. Now, his market value at the moment is pretty much on the nose at $6 million a year. Now, my issue is I'm saying, and I don't know what you guys think, I'm saying not to sign him. And there's 2 reasons. One was he was our backup, did absolutely fine for what he did. With what he had in terms of guarantees, he only ended up taking away 3 billion. But my issue is where did he take us? So, you know, didn't get us very far. Got us 3 wins. But the one behind the 2 other issues I have as a backup. But the 2 other things that I think the reason why I would leave it is, one, what we just talked about, the Dak deal. We need as much money as we can. That's $6 million we can save, which we can put onto Dak. The other one is Garrett Gilbert.
Yes,
we got to see him in one game.
I am all on board to give Gilbert like more time to give him like the backup role.
Mm-hmm. He's going to cost you a lot less than $6 million. And this guy, don't forget, in week 9, in the game he played, 245 yards, 1 touchdown, beat the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was fantastic. To be perfectly honest with you, like, I was surprised, like, when we were told that when Andy Dalton was getting brought back in, but that was the business decision more end of the day, because paying all that money for a backup quarterback, you get him on the field, get the best use out of him.
Yeah.
So So I definitely think we need to get Gilbert back in. Definitely.
Yeah. What's your take, Marcus?
Let me go to the comments real quick because Steve Barker Mountford put a great comment up here. He says Lamar and Allen will get deals before Dak, which will push him up even more.
That's the issue you have.
I'm looking for Josh Allen to just walk into the owner's office and say, "Here's a check. Give me a check. Let me fill it out, and I'll bring it back to you." That's how much it means to Buffalo.
Pretty much. Yep.
Yeah.
He is literally that organization's
Now Lamar may not have the leverage, but Josh Allen does, and his number may be extremely ridiculous. We may look at Patrick Mahomes' number and say the Chiefs got a deal.
Like 47, 48 million, maybe.
I mean, Josh Allen can literally say whatever he wants in Buffalo, and they'll pay it.
Yeah,
that's something we have to be concerned about.
I'd say Lamar's in the same boat there with Baltimore.
He's pretty close, but Josh Allen is
I would say Josh Allen's higher, to be honest.
Yeah, Josh Allen is a hero now.
I agree, Marcus. I definitely agree.
Yeah.
So is everyone in agreement, though, that signing Andy Dalton back is a bad move, and we'll leave that money on the table for the Dak deal then?
I'm sorry about that, Mike. I got off topic when I saw that comment.
You're all right, mate. You go with the flow.
Oh, good, man.
For me, I would say yes, because if Dak's not our quarterback, we're not winning 7 games no matter who the quarterback is.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, definitely.
So if we have to sign a backup now, let's just go with the cheapest option, because this team is good enough to win 6 or 7 games with anybody. I mean, Garrett, like you said, Garrett Gilbert gave us some good snaps last year against a very good Pittsburgh team.
Was it not like the undefeated Steelers?
Yeah, they were undefeated.
They were undefeated. At the time,
yeah.
So
they were 8-0, I think, when they got to us. Yeah.
So I would just look at bringing in just a veteran guy, somebody who Gilbert can learn under to see what he has. I really like Brett Hundley. He was a backup in Green Bay.
And that was a Mike McCarthy pick as well. That was a Mike McCarthy pick.
He loves Brett Hundley.
Yeah, and he'll be a hell of a lot cheaper than Andy Dalton, that's for sure.
He played for the league minimum last year. He plays similar to Dak as well.
I was just about to say that because he's got the arm, but he's also got the mobility like Dak. He can run with the ball if he needs to. He can run with the ball. So
extremely smart, very mature for his age. He was drafted the year before Dak, so they're about the same age. So if I was looking for a backup, that's the guy I go for.
Brett Hundley.
Yeah. And you're not looking at more.
Great shout. Yep.
And you're not looking at maybe a more expensive guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know, he's gone. He's off the table.
Let me say this about guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick or Cam Newton. They may come around the same price as Dalton, a little cheaper. They're too alpha for me.
Yeah, they'll demand the locker room pretty much.
Right, exactly. Ryan Fitzpatrick, wherever he's been, they've always considered him the backup, but he miraculously ends up starting 7 or 8 games,
and taking the league by storm.
Exactly. I mean, I can remember situations where Ryan Fitzpatrick was number 2 behind the guy they just paid whatever the top salary was, and Ryan Fitzpatrick ends up being the starter. He goes to Miami, where the golden boy 2 is, and he ends up being the starter. So
don't forget Jameis Winston as well.
Exactly, Tampa Bay. Yeah, first overall pick.
I don't know how many times Ryan Fitzpatrick has been redeemed as Fitzmagic.
Mm-hmm.
He's just somehow miraculously just came into the game and just completely transformed that franchise for that season. Like the star quarterback was doing so terrible, he comes in and actually savaged them to get an 8-8 season rather than a 4-12, for example. You know,
and I think he just has it, and I think Cam Newton kind of has that too. And if you brought guys like that in, they would put the younger guys to the back burner more than they would help them.
Yeah.
For a 1-year price.
Yeah, but I mean that's fair enough. With the quarterbacks, that is a very deep rabbit hole to go down, especially with Dak. But let's move on to something a bit more simpler. Let's look at the wide receivers. So there's 2 wide receivers that are restricted and unrestricted free agents. We've got Cedric Wilson, restricted free agent, was taken in the 6th round.
I have to laugh at that comment. That's amazing. Brilliant, dog. Brilliant.
So, yeah, Cedric Wilson, restricted free agent, taken in the 6th round, has a market value of 1.4 million. For me, that's a bit too rich. Are you guys ready to give up on Cedric Wilson? We're giving him enough chance, and especially with what we have at wide receiver, and take into account as well what we have in the draft in terms of wide receiver depth. Are you guys ready to move on with Cedric, or do you want to try and continue, as they say, players over picks?
I think we probably will end up getting someone in the draft, and
oh yeah,
to be honest, like you said, that this year's depth for wide receiver is probably better, much better than last year's. To be honest,
I would say so. Yeah,
definitely.
So, I mean, you could probably get yourself an absolute diamond in the rough, like in the 3rd and 4th rounds or something like that, and they could end up being like exactly what Michael Gallup has become right now. And we'll probably we're going to talk about him just shortly, but you get the idea. Like, where does that leave Cedric Wilson? I don't think it's going to, like, Wilson's going to cost a bit more than getting someone like in those 3rd and 4th round picks, because the salary cap, again, it is the cheaper option, but you are getting more years out of that player for what we're going to draft them in.
Yeah.
Like, for that 1 year contract, that could be that draft pick's 4-year season in wages.
And you think as well, if you're taking a wide... Go on, Greg. Go on. You go for it.
I would bring Wilson in, but on a team-friendly deal with very few guarantees, just to see what we have in camp.
And is it because he's got the same last name as you?
It's an awful lot to spend on a jersey when he might not be here this year. But when you consider the holes we have to fill elsewhere, it strikes as a bit of a luxury pick to take somebody in the first 4 rounds. So I think if we can bring in Cedric Wilson as a camp body on league minimum, I'm not sure how much it is, with very little guarantees, that would be my step. But I don't see people lining up to sign him. So you're gonna get him on a team friendly deal anyway.
Yeah. Perhaps,
Well, here's one, right, which is quite funny that you're back on, Marcus, because the last time you were on, we were doing a wide receiver review in the off season before the season started. That's how long ago you were on.
Yeah.
And one of the players we spoke about is a guy who was an unrestricted free agent this year, Noah Brown. Because we spoke about him and it got into a bit of controversy here. 7th round pick in 2017. Since then, he's scored us 0 touchdowns. Is this a guy because you have to take into account special teams where he does make his money.
Yep.
Are you keeping him around for that purpose, or are you ready to move on?
I said it last year on multiple podcasts, and I'll say it again now. Noah Brown is going to make this team, guys. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Yeah. His special team contributions cannot be overlooked. He's going to be a league minimum guy for probably the rest of his career.
I think so, too.
So you get a guy who's at the league minimum, and if you go look at the stats, Cedric Wilson had 18 catches last year. Noah Brown had 14.
Yes.
So do you want an often injured Cedric Wilson? And he's from Memphis. I love him. I'm always going to cheer for him. But do you want an often injured Cedric Wilson who's going to maybe want a little bit more than league minimum? Or do you want Noah Brown, 6'4", 230, can block, give you a
and can run fast.
Can run fast. Great special teams guy. We're still going to draft somebody. But we still have to round out the back end of our receiving room, and he's going to always be that designated special teams guy because
as a gunner.
Yeah. Every team needs one designated special teams guy as a receiver, and that's going to be Noah Brown's position until he can't play football anymore.
Or he loses that straight line speed, that top end speed,
Yeah, it's like who was that? The player that mostly played for Seattle, who's more well, he's been for a few teams, but he was so more of a known for being that special teams player. I cannot remember the name. What's his freaking name?
How long ago was it?
Must have retired about 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, he retired 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, retired.
I think he may have retired, unless he's not with a team anymore because but he was always like.
I mean, you've always got like he played for the Falcons. His last was Devin Hester. You know,
Yeah.
That's the guy I'm talking about, Devin Hester.
Oh, is it right? Okay, yeah, he's just yeah, you know, not bad receiver, but he made his money as a return.
Yeah, it was just purely special teams. He was so renowned for.
Well, yeah, he broke records, mate.
You look at Matthew Slater for the Patriots.
Yeah.
Never caught a ball, but he's been in the league 14 years because he's the 5th receiver that plays nothing but special teams.
Yeah.
Could be said. I suppose you could say about Ryan Switzer, but he's kind of really drifted off since he's left Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
that was such a shame. I
liked him as well.
Too.
I liked Switzer. I liked Switzer as well.
But let's get into a bit of controversy here, guys, because that's what we do here. And it just seems to be every time Marcus is on, we bring in controversy. Michael Gallup, right? So here's the issue that we have, right? Is that he's in his final year, right? Sort of, if that makes sense. But, right, what do? Do you keep him around because it's the strength on strength argument? Wide receiver is probably the place where we're the strongest. But if that's where you're the strongest, do you go and get value? Especially as we spoke about in a draft where there's wide receivers just coming out of every hole at the moment. And the way things are going, it seems to be every week another wide receiver's exploded onto the scene and raised his draft stock. What do you do with Michael Gallup? Are you guys keeping him around, or are you trying to use value? Because pretty much at the end of this year, he's lost value for what we can do for him. So it's a case of do it now, or that's it.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Marcus? Are you keeping him around?
I can go either way, but as of today, without knowing what we do in the future, I would say you keep him because he's a very talented guy and he's very inexpensive. Now, if we go into the draft and we get a guy like a Pitts or Chase or Devonta Smith falls to us and it's like too good to pass up, then I can have that discussion about what do we do with Gallup. But I'm not just gonna get rid of him now because I think he has a certain amount of value, unless that value is higher than I expect. Like if I thought I can get a first for Gallup or a high second from a team, I would take that phone call. Like if the Jets came calling at pick 34 for Gallup, we have that conversation, a very serious one. But I'm not giving them up for a late day 2 pick or later.
Yeah. But I mean, what are you thinking, Greg? Because I know we've spoken about this Gallup situation before. What are you thinking? Are you wanting to keep him around, or are you trying to corral picks this year? And like Marcus said, if it's the right value, early day 2 pick.
I think if you were to get anything above, like Marcus is saying, if you were to get anything above a 3rd round pick, I would take the phone call. But I don't see Michael Gallup being on the team in 2022. He's gonna go make his money somewhere, and it's not going to be with the Cowboys because we have too many people to pay. Yeah. So you can either hold on to him and let his contract run out, and we have
a Byron Jones 2.0,
and we have a walkout, another high-profile walkout, or we get some value for him. But there's an asterisk, like Marcus said, you have to have decent money. You have to have a decent offer for him. You wouldn't let Michael Gallup go for anything less than a 2nd round pick because there's no guarantee that 3rd round pick will work out. Lower you go, you're taking a risk. So you might as well have Michael Gallup on the team. It's just unfortunate that the draft is littered with wide receivers. Why would you go and give up anything valuable for him as opposed to taking somebody? But at least you know what you're getting with Michael Gallup. There's tape on Michael Gallup in the NFL, so that's where he holds his value. But anything less than a a second, I wouldn't entertain. I would rather have Gallup for his last year. I don't see him signing a team friendly deal. I know there's people suggested that kind of stuff. He's been on the bare bones for the best part of his career. He wants his money, so somebody will pay Michael Gallup, but it's not going to be the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that you just mentioned that. You need to think as well about the majority of these wide receivers have actually opted out last season as well. How many of these players are going into this draft is going to affect that draft stock? Teams are going to be looking into that as well. Yep. Whereas they're going to look at Michael Gallup, okay, he's played 3 seasons before in the NFL. We've got plenty of footage. We know what he's capable of. Whereas if there was a particular wide receiver they were looking at in the draft and they opted out, it's like, okay, we don't have as much detail, and they might necessarily come in the expectations might be set too high, and they look at them and they're like, that kind of throws that out the window potentially. So Gallup still has a lot of leverage when it comes to like trade value, I think.
Yeah.
In that respect. But in terms of like, so you were saying like if we were to get a second round pick, but I would say if we can get a second round and maybe like some lower draft picks on top of that as well, but I'd be very happy with that, because I would rather have multiple picks rather than because that means it gives McCarthy more time to kind of actually mold players that he wants in the team to build up, and that means we can get the additional players maybe potentially on other positions as well. That's something that we'll be looking at. I mean, so
it would take at least
a second for me to even take is a good team.
Yep.
Sorry, Marcus. Go.
No, I was just saying it would take at least a second round pick for me to even pick up the phone.
At least, yeah. Like if we were to get like a second round pick and a 4th round pick, maybe not necessarily this year, but the year after, I'd be more than happy with that.
Right.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. Just something just to add on top of it, because we're never going to get a 1st round for him. We never will get that. But there will be some team that will be willing to give us a second round and those be extra compensation picks.
Yeah.
But like just to go on Marcus's example of the Jets. Say the Jets do take their next QB at 2, and we do have the Gallup conversation at 34. The Jets know straight away that Michael Gallup is going to be the best receiver in that room.
Yep.
As opposed to taking a wide receiver in the second round and not necessarily knowing that it's going to work out. You know what you're going to get with Michael Gallup.
Exactly.
So if the Jets were to phone, that's definitely a conversation.
You could have Miami as well, and like you say, with the way things are going in the league at the moment, known commodities is what it's all about. And like you say, he's a known commodity. You've got tape on him. But let's move on to the next guys so we can get on to the defense. Cam Irvin's my next guy.
Well, before you jump in, I do have a question for you guys. Gabe Jackson for the Oakland Raiders is getting released. Would we? Because it's I would say if like for the price that we could probably get him for, I'm sure you. I don't know if you've looked into it, Marcus, because it just came out. I think it was earlier today, or something like that. He's getting released, and I think he was slated to make $9.6 million.
Right.
In 2021. I mean, that's not really much of a big hit when, in all respective of him like signing a 5-year, $55 million contract back in 2017.
Right.
It's not really a lot, and it's not going to take much hit in the cap, like from the Raiders' perspective. But for me, it would be a no-brainer if we can try and get him in, because just want to know what your guys' thoughts on getting likes of Gabe Jackson in.
The one that interested me today, right, and this kind of falls into the Bargman basement scraping of the Dallas Cowboys in free agency, that popped up before we came on the show, is the Lions have released Desmond Trufant. And I just think that's got Dallas Cowboys written all over it. He's going to be very, very cheap. He's going to be cheap because he didn't play a full season. He's got some stats last year. I actually think that that's the type of guy that they'll go for.
I mean, regular listeners to the podcast and the show will know that I'm always cautious with free agents. Why is Gabe Jackson being released? If his cap number's that low, why is he being released?
I think it's all based on cap. Like they're not getting any cap hit by releasing him, but they're going to be saving. I think there's like, hold on, I'm trying to get the article up right now. I think they're going to be saving 9.6 million, which they can probably get another 2 or 3 players depending on what the contracts are.
Right, and they're already 6 million over the cap, so this gives
them so it's all business. Like they would love to keep Gabe Jackson because he has been one of the most consistent players for Oakland right now, and he's not really missed it. Like I believe he's not really missed a game in 3 seasons. Like for an offensive lineman, that is solid. You know, it's like Zach Martin back in his first 4 seasons.
Right.
Well, that's the checklist to go and get somebody.
To me, it's no brainer. I would try and bring him in if we can. Take on that the existing contract that he's got. So
I just wonder if like teams with loads of cap space, they could throw some serious offers at him.
They could.
But is he still eligible to be picked up? Like he hadn't cleared waivers or anything, has he?
He doesn't have to clear waivers. He's a veteran.
Oh, okay. Right,
if anybody has more than 4 years of experience, as soon as they're cut, they can go anywhere. So yeah,
certainly an option.
4 incurred years, isn't it?
All right.
But the next guy on my list, unrestricted free agent Cam Irvin. I don't know about you guys. I'm not re-signing this guy. You had Knight, you had Steele. They filled in with all the injuries. He played 6 games, went on IR himself. I think just with the injury concerns, the salary cap with Dak, he's pretty much a surefire cut for me. I don't know what you guys think. Agree or disagree?
Agreed.
I never liked Cam Irvin as a player.
Yeah.
But what about Joe Looney, though? I mean, he's unrestricted as well. He's your centre guard swing.
Just saw your reaction there, Mark. He's like, "Oh no, not this guy."
Yeah. Are you the same? I'm not keeping him around. If I'm honest with you, what about you guys?
He's had his opportunity, I think, but
yeah,
I don't think he's. I think we saw a bit more from Bayadish.
Yeah.
To be fair, even though Bayadish did make his own fair mistakes, but bear in mind he is a rookie. Bear in mind, he's still got a lot of freeway of building and learning, like developing as a player in the NFL. Whereas Looney, we're only getting that type of season that he had when Travis went out, pretty much.
Yeah.
He actually went below expectations because we kind of thought hopefully he could actually come back in and do what he did 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a solid player. I mean, the fans love him because of his personality.
Yeah.
We still have Connor McGovern, who's under a rookie deal, who can play center as a backup and guard.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So do we want to pay Joe Looney $3 million to compete with McGovern? I don't.
Especially when you're looking again with you need money for Dak and the cap is tight.
And the
defense.
Right.
So here's the other side of the defense. Antoine Woods, restricted free agent. I'm bringing him back. I think we're gonna. He's a guy you want to bring back. But here's one for you: Tyrone Crawford, unrestricted free agent. Gone for me.
I think he has to. Yeah, like he's. How much is he on? How much would his salary be this season? Is it like?
His last contract that he signed. Tell me if you think it was worth it. 45 million.
No.
What?
That was the for his full contract, not for the year.
That's the perfect example to what I raised at the start of the show. Overpaying players that we have already. Sticking to loyalty and keeping our guys around. If they're not good enough, move on. Like teams like the Patriots, they are kings of moving on from people that they don't want to give a second contract to, and that's why they have so many rings. They move on from deadwood.
I mean, the issue with Tyrone as well is this double hip surgery as well. And here's a crazy one for you. Just going through his stats, right? So last year, 14 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, and he got 2 sacks. Both of them on back-to-back plays versus the Bengals.
$4 million per sack.
Against the worst offensive line in the league. Worse than ours that year.
So,
I mean, he's been a great servant, but
I mean, I love Tyron Crawford, but from a business decision, I wouldn't keep him.
Yeah,
I've met Tyron Crawford personally. I think he's awesome, man. If he does manage to if we somehow manage to restructure, I don't know, but even still, though, there's other players out there that can do a much better job right now. Because coming from that type of surgery, it's hard. It really is, and
especially with the weight and the position you play.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is a guy that can literally play from 1 to 5 tech.
And he is a big he is a big guy. I'm a big guy myself, but Jesus, Tyron Crawford made me feel like I was insignificant. I'm not joking. And when you think about it, when you've got a double hip surgery, but you're having to move the way he's supposed to move with all that weight, and it will take its toll on him.
Yeah.
I'd just like to point out at this stage in the process, we've made good cases for 2 players in Dak Prescott and Noah Brown, so they're going to be extremely busy. Replacing.
We're going to do the linebackers last, and then we'll look at the free agents in the league. But first of all, I just thought we'd look at the defensive backs because we can glide through these. It's pretty easy. We've got Cheeto, unrestricted free agent, market value of $8.5 million. For me, I'm not thinking so for what we've got. J-Lu, he's unrestricted free agent as well. CJ Goodwin, unrestricted free agent. And Xavier Woods, I've got my thoughts on him. I wrote down quite a lot about him. Of any of those 4, are there any that you want to keep? Purely on the basis of what have we got? Because as it stands at the moment, it's Trayvon Diggs and Brown on the other side.
We're going to have to. I think one of them is going to be kept.
Which
I'll
one?
say that. One who I have no idea, to be perfectly honest with you, because I don't know the way how we're going to be going forward. Because we're going to bring. We've got a new DC now. He's going to be assessing what we've got right now, and he'll have say for example, if it was still Mike Nolan, we probably have a much better idea who you probably will end up keeping. But now we've got Dan Quinn in, he might completely turn it all around. Who knows?
For the list you've just rounded off, Mike, I don't think there will be any contract negotiation. There will be certainly an offer. There will be a sheet of paper slid across to them. This is the deal we have for you. Sign it, or thanks for the memories. I don't think they'll compete to keep any of them.
Okay.
Same thing I said for Noah Brown. CJ Goodwin is going to be a career number 6 cornerback who's going to be a special teams ace.
There we go.
He always
speed right there.
Speed
the comment right there. Speed team.
I never want to watch him play a snap of defense, but I love watching him on kick and punt return. Love him.
Yeah,
he always does something.
I'm with you on that one. That would be the only guy I'm keeping. The other guys, they had a chance. I love J-Lu for what he did, but then it's just slipped by the wayside with what he's done. Unless he's trying to sack the quarterback, there's not much more really he can bring you. And Xavier Woods is the safety argument with the Cowboys again. So I don't think they keep him because Cowboys don't. I mean, Jeff Heath, he walked out the door. Like the way I look at it with Xavier is like you put him on any other roster in the NFL, right? I don't care. Name all the teams if you want. No matter what, he's a backup safety on all those teams.
Yep.
And yet here we are at the Cowboys and he's starting for us as your center fielder. Doesn't make sense to me. Inconsistency. Also, going through his stats, at one point during the season, he allowed 18 completions on 23 pass attempts against him. That's just awful. That gave him a seasonal grade of 61.
Are you purposely trying to make me grow even more bald right now because of that fact?
What you think he's coming back, Paul?
I'm just saying it's like the facts that Mike is giving me is making me feel like I'm getting balder in my head. Like I've got no hair as bad as it is, but the fact that he's stating the facts like that, I'm going to end up more baldy than Dan Quinn.
Right, so
but
this
is all reflected in the talk we're hearing out of the Cowboys. The only free agency talk I've heard is Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
I haven't heard.
That's the media. That's the media chatter.
I haven't heard any offers for any of the linemen that are on offer. We haven't heard any talk of Alden Smith's renegotiation.
Yeah.
These guys will hit free agency. I'm certain there will be offers made to these guys, but I don't think we're going to compete to keep any of them.
Alden's going to be. I think Alden's going to be a lot harder to keep. I think now because he had a good stellar start. You think so?
I don't know.
Mike?
No, let's get to the linebackers then and start with Alden Smith. Right. 4 weeks in, he was our sack leader with 4 sacks. Yeah. How many sacks did he get after week number 4?
0, I believe.
0. Now you could say that's conditioning. You could say it's conditioning. So. Yeah,
I would say so.
You could put that down to Mike Nolan. You could put that down to him.
That was going to be the next factor. But is that a guy where you say, I really don't know. I didn't even know she was in the room.
I was trying to see what that was in the background.
I don't know how that happened. I did.
Oh, Mike's house was haunted at first.
Hold on. Let me see if I can try and block it. There we go. I mean, like Alden Smith, is that a type of guy for all of you that you just say, okay, there was something there. Let's re-sign him. We know because as it stands, we've got 2 linebackers. Well, actually, we've got 3. Yeah. 2 we've got question marks, which we'll get to in a minute. But is that a type of guy? Because Alden Smith, he's not a linebacker, really, is he?
Right.
Yeah, he's your designated pass rusher. So, are you keeping him back because you had something there and you want to see, or do you think the price is going to be too high?
Too high.
Probably too high with all things considering.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, it'd be interesting to see. Again, I'm more interested to see what Dan Quinn does for our defense this year. More than anything, I want to see all the players getting a kick right up the arse, pretty much.
Right.
You know?
That they do need, yeah.
Like, we need to get rid of this mentality that celebrating a tackle, but yet we lost the game mentality.
Yeah.
Like that needs to change. The whole behavior needs to change. We need to be absolute dogs in that whenever we're on that field.
Yeah.
So
in terms of my positional importance, it's QB top, tackle second, and pass rusher third. Somebody's going to pay Alden Smith money we can't compete with. Just simply on his reputation that he's back in the league, he's shown it through the autumn that he can still compete. Conditioning has probably caught up with him because he's not played a full season in so long. We all know how difficult that is. So the conditioning probably caught up with him, but there's enough there to convince you that Alden Smith is worth taking a risk on in free agency, particularly if you have a lot of cap room to play with. So somebody is going to offer him money we can't compete with.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
And you guys hit the nail on the head. In the scheme we run, that we anticipate them running, he'll be more of a defensive end than he will a Sam linebacker.
Yeah.
And even if the money was reasonable, I still question. You look at Atlanta, you have Charles Harris, you have Tack McKinley, you have Vic Beasley. They're all unrestricted free agents. If all their numbers are the same as Alden, can we really expect for him to sign Alden Smith, a guy he doesn't know, who's 33 years old, over one of these other 3 guys who he pretty much drafted to play on his team in Atlanta? It's going to be very difficult to believe that Alden would get the nod over all 3 of those guys who are in their mid-20s.
Yeah, it's more.
That's
It's the
the
youth.
shit.
It's
Yeah.
the youth. It's the youth factor as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I totally agree, Marcus. That's
Because
that's a great point. Great point.
They've already had time in his system, so
Right.
why wouldn't it just be a continuation? Exactly.
Especially if the numbers are the same. I can get a 26-year-old who's played in my system for 4 years, or I can get a 33-year-old who's been out of the league 5 years and only had 4 good games.
And played God knows what type of system that he was playing that season before.
Right. Exactly.
But going off the veteran side and what have you, Sean Lee is an unrestricted free agent, and Joe Thomas. Bringing any of them pair back, or are you putting them on the side for now and saying, hold the phone, we may be giving you a ring?
Oh man.
Oh God, that's right. So when you're talking about the whole linebacker situation we've got, I'd say this is probably more of a priority than we really anticipated.
I'm tempted to say bring both of them back, honestly.
Yeah. I am.
I think we need to bring them back because, and I said this at the start of the season. It's like the numbers that when we had our full 53-man squad, I was like, there's no enough rotation to support LVE, Jalen, and Sean Lee to rotate in. I think we only had 2 other players in. Like, I'm just like, so where does this leave? What happens if 2 of our starters are out? We literally have no one else to back up the backups.
Yeah.
You know, so
at the age of 35, Sean Lee was our best defender in games last year.
Yeah,
so that's how scary the situation is. That's how much stabilizing we need to do at linebacker. So I would like you, Mike. I would talk about bringing both of them back.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing with Sean Lee. Like, we know he's lost his pace, right? But his football knowledge will always forever be growing. His anticipation of seeing things before they happen. It might take him that a little bit slow to get there, but at least he knows what the play's happening. And that's one of the best things that Sean Lee can do.
I'm using that to basically use that as a segue to get into controversy again, because Sean Lee, I would say, is the opposite of Jalen Smith. So Jalen Smith, he's the guy who I think is lacking that when you see Jalen Smith, you're seeing a guy who's questioning himself, like as if he's not prepared enough for what he's seeing. Where Sean Lee is the opposite, but as you say, he's lost the athleticism.
Yep.
So here we go. Jalen Smith. I'm going round the horn and I'm starting with our special guest, Mr. Marcus. And I know how he feels on this guy. What are you doing with Jalen Smith? Are you keeping him? Are you cutting him? Or are you cutting him as a post-June as well?
If I say what the team will do, I got to go back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show. We don't have marketable players on defense except for Jalen Smith. Jerry Jones can spin the clear eye view crap. He can spin the injuries and the comeback story. He can spin the marketing deal that he has with Jalen to get him to sign the deal he signed. And Jalen sells a ton of jerseys. Like, everybody has a Jalen Smith jersey. For those reasons, I don't think he's going anywhere. And I heard there was a report that he's getting moved to Sam linebacker, and I'm ecstatic about that because since the day he was drafted, I feel like that was the position he should have been in the whole time.
I don't know. See, now that's where I disagree. I see him more as a Mike linebacker.
You do?
But you need to have... I do, but he needs the support. And you need to have... Because I like Jalen...
That's the problem.
I like Jalen Smith, right? I like Jalen Smith. I do like him.
I like him too.
But I'm going to say this now, right? And anyone who disagrees with this, you're wrong, right? That he has a lot of limitations to his game. I like Jalen Smith, but he has a lot of limitations. His change of direction is bad. His top speed is fine, but it's making him get there.
No, I would disagree with the top speed, especially in that Cleveland game. I'll be perfectly honest with you. He would die on that one.
Yeah, maybe not last season, but you have seen what he can do if he works on it.
Yeah.
But like the big one for me is just the natural instincts. It seems to be because he's a smart guy, He's not a stupid guy. I think it's a lack of readiness with him, a lack of preparation, which is the opposite of Sean Lee.
See, this kind of goes back to like when it comes to Jalen, right? Like, yes, Valenti made the comment saying, yeah, he was our top tackler in the team. Yeah, that may be so, but when you really dissect the game film, there was a lot of things I was really angry about Jalen Smith. He did not stick to his gap. He would actually like
Rover.
Yep. So, for example, the Cincinnati game, he was supposed to hit the B gap, then the B gap collapsed, so he decided to move away, but the running back waited and still managed to hit through that B gap. If Jalen just had anticipation rather than being jumping the gun essentially and anticipating before even looking to see what happens, he would actually made more tackles than he should have been. Like, even though he was the top tackle on our team, but he actually made him a lot more. And yeah, so yeah.
But there's an example of if he had prepared and watched game tape he would have known that that's what he was going to be doing. For me, like this is going to sound bad, but on what day you catch me on is how I feel about what the Cowboys should do about Jalen Smith. That is really, really weird to say. Like, some days I'm like, no, you got to keep him. Jalen Smith, I think, was misused last season very badly. I think he was misused.
Lauren just nailed that in the coffin. He was moved to Will by Mike Nolan, and he's not a Will linebacker.
He's definitely not. He's even the wrong build for Will. But I mean, he doesn't look like one. I don't mean to sound funny, but I think he was misused. But I do think that there are issues with him, like the change of direction. The change of direction with him is a bad thing, and you can that is clear. So he does have limitations. So I think, and then I think to myself, well, Dan Quinn, he's a decent enough defensive coordinator. He's going to know how to use him. But then you go back down this road of that. If you cut him now, you get 12 million back on the cap next year. If you do him as a post-June cut, he's 7 million back on the cap. So it really, I switch between the three, maybe 3 times a day.
I'm gonna defend him slightly with 3 points. One, Lauren has kind of stole the thunder a little bit. He was a great player in 2019. He was paid as a great player.
That's why he got that contract, was because of his performance in that season, and rightly so.
Two, Andy Valenti raised the point that he was our top tackler last season. There's no, but that's hard stats. That's not, that is written
I can
down.
give you a stat on that, mind.
And the third one is we've already raised concerns about the linebacker position. Do we really want to make it worse? Do we want to make it worse?
We can't literally afford to lose any linebackers at this moment in time. Really,
Yeah, and especially if you don't know what you're going to do with Leighton Vander Esch as well in his 5th year.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that one another time. So then, guys, let's move on to the other side, right? Let us have a look at free agency targets. So we've just talked about what we're looking at. Now, I have my top targets. I've got some guys. I've even got some guys who I am no way Jose in. So first of all, as I said, I've written a little something up. I'm going to post up on the weekend. My 5 steps to Cowboys stardom. Basically what they need to do in the off season, 5 steps in order to get back the thing back on track. One of the things is free agency. For me, the 2 big ones is defensive lineman and a defensive back, more down the road of cornerback. Because I think we could do things in the draft or after with safety. I don't know what you guys take on that. That's how I'm looking. So what do you want to do, guys? Who do we look at first? Do you want to look at some defensive linemen that are on the free agent market, or do you want to go corner? Which way do you want to go on this?
Go with D-line. Go with D-line.
Yeah. So first of all, then, if we look at D-line, I'm going to go straight to Marcus because I know you've got a list yourself as well. Who's your top and favorite defensive lineman? I know we mentioned one already, Gerald McCoy. But away from that, who's your next guys on the free agent market you're looking at?
Well, let me say this first. My focus is 100% on the one tech.
Yes, agreed.
I'm good with Gallimore and Hill. If we get McCoy back, my 3 tech spot, I'm good with it.
Yes.
You got to hope D-Law earns his money. I like the guys who are behind him in terms of the young guys. If Gregory can keep his nose clean, he should be good at that spot.
Oh yeah. That's definitely.
He should be amazing. Bradley and I should get some snaps, so I think he's
fingers crossed.
Something. So I feel like that end spot is good too. At that nose tackle, all we have is Antoine Ruiz right now, and he's not a starting nose tackle.
No.
Yeah, as much as I love Antoine Woods,
I love him too.
Yeah, like you can still put him in there. He'll still put in 100% effort in, but where in terms of getting just that extra, he always falls short on it. You know,
right?
He's not a full nose. He's more like a one shade.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So in terms of that, who have you got? I've got my guys as well. I've got a cheap option and a not so cheap option.
So if I'm going with my expensive guy, I really like Dalvin Tomlinson from the Giants. That's my number one nose.
Yeah.
If I want to go a little bit under that and take a risk, I'll look at Jarrell Casey, the guy that was just cut from Denver.
Very really cheap. That was my cheap option. That was my cheap option.
Well, that's my mid-tier option.
Okay.
My cheap option would be Jonathan Hankins from the Raiders. Those are my top 3 guys.
There seems to be a lot of Cowboys and Raiders switcheroos that's been happening here.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the guys who I think who falls into he's a little bit expensive, but I think you can get a deal for him, and I think would be a good fit is Shelby Harris.
That's another guy on my list.
Yeah, I think this guy is very nice. He's more of a pass rusher, I find, though, but I think that you could do a bit of switching around on the defensive line, and I think if you just add a guy like that, finding a guy then in the draft that you can find in the second round, like an Alan McNeil, who's going to fill your center, or even Marvin Wilson.
Marvin Wilson, yeah.
They're the guys that fill the center spot, and then you use, your guy like Shelby Harris to fill those spots. I like the Dalvin Tomlinson one. I looked at that guy as well, but I don't know what you think on this because he's cropped up on a few posts I've noticed. A guy I'm staying away from is Ndamukong Suh.
Definitely,
I'm out on him. 100%. Too old.
He's going to want too much money, and he only wants 1-year deals. We can't afford to give a
you're
guy.
You're talking about $8 million for that one season from Suh, at least.
Yeah.
I think he'll want to stay in Tampa as well. Tom Brady.
I don't know. I'm not sure what they would do with him. I mean, what you got to think of is, so he turned 34, like literally in the new year, like January the 3rd or something. That means that come you wheel around, that come playoff time, you've got a 35-year-old defensive tackle. I'm just, I can't buy that.
Especially for the amount of money, especially in terms of what money he can actually earn despite his age.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, a guy I was kind of looking at was like Sheldon Rankins.
I think he's just going to be too expensive.
Well, I'm looking at what the trackers are saying.
Yeah.
Like, potentially, it could go for like between $3 and $6 million a season, within that range. I mean, it's a hell of a lot cheaper than Suh.
I don't think that's accurate. Not for Sheldon. I don't.
Yeah, I think he's going to go for probably, you're looking 8.
I'm thinking 6 to 8. Yeah.
Yeah.
At that price, I would still consider him though. But
yeah.
And he does generate. He generates a lot of pressure. That's what I like about him. But I think with a guy like Sheldon Rankins, you're gonna really try and get like a 2-year deal for him, somewhere down that road, maybe 3, and then you're wondering what you're going to be doing with that. But
what about Adam Butler? Because he actually had a good season as well for New England.
New England, yeah. Solid player.
Just trying to go through my rankings to see where I've got him.
I feel like he's going to sign back, though, because New England has a ton of money, and they don't have much talent. I think New England has $80 million in free cap space. I don't see anybody leaving that they like.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, it's fair to say, because like when people talk about, you know, the Cowboys with the defensive line, it's not like they haven't tried, is what I would say. They did go out and all right, you know, we could talk about the Panthers guys, both of them. You know, McCoy, he went down with an injury early, and then you've got Paul's favorite guy, Dontari Poe.
Fuck off. Don't mention his name.
You beat me.
I mean, so they have tried. Do you know what I mean? They have gone down this road, and you've got Neville Gallimore. I can certainly see them.
The future. I'm telling you, he's going to be the future. I'm telling you.
He'd look fine. It's just that he's a guy that just needs to stick a bit more sand in his pants, and he's away. But it's most certainly, I think, in terms of free agency, I'm with you, Marcus, 100%. I'm looking at a 1-tech guy. I'm not worried about the 3-tech. I'm going to go down that road, perhaps in a draft or afterwards, because there's plenty of them in there.
Yeah.
I'm really what you're looking at is run defense. Less clog the run, because that is what was the biggest issue of all. It is definitely that. In terms of moving away from interior defenders, look at the cornerbacks. We could go down that road.
Sorry, Mike. I am Austin. If you were to even suggest that, I will burn that jersey right in front of your face. I'm sorry.
Now, there has been talk in cornerback world of the Cowboys and Richard Sherman trying to get a little bit of a get together. I certainly feel that no matter what, even if when the draft comes and you've got Patrick Surtain, Caleb Farley, and JC Horn all sitting there, I still think in the first round, cornerback is the way to go, right?
Yeah.
Every time I've done it, it's always worked out the best way is taking corners first. But I still think no matter what, with what we've got on the roster, you've got to sign some free agent cornerbacks. Richard Sherman an option for you, or do you think that this is a guy who's too expensive?
I think
too expensive and too injury prone. You only played a third of the snaps last year. I think he's on the
I think his value will definitely go down because the amount of snaps he's missed, for sure. But I still think it might be worth even a 1-year deal or something. But who knows? Again,
So are you saying, though, then you would pay more for a veteran quarterback if you've got, rather than the injury history, something with a bit more of a known commodity?
Well, for a guy like Richard Sherman, who's played under Dan Quinn, he can easily help those other guys to sit within that system a lot more effectively. That's the way I'm seeing it. So even though we might not get Richard Sherman maybe on the field all the time, but what he can give to the other guys, the backups and the other players, is how to play under Dan Quinn's defensive scheme. And I think that's a key factor we're forgetting here.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Marcus? Are you? Would you take Richard Sherman? Do you think he's too pricey because of the name?
I'm leaning more towards that. I see him kind of like a Sue guy, where he just wants to be a 1-year hired gun, $7, $8, $9 million. If that's the case,
probably more.
I can't touch
him.
Yeah,
if that's the case, Marcus, then no, I would not want him. But I think if he's coming over for the right reasons, by all means, like.
Yeah, and when I look at what I'm looking for in terms of what I would consider a number 2 corner, I need somebody that I can rely on to at least be a starter the whole year. And like you guys said before, He's missed quite a few games, and that can be a little concerning for me. I don't want to have another Gerald McCoy situation where I bring the guy in thinking he's gonna teach my young guys and he's gonna provide some quality snaps, and then he gets hurt in the off season.
To that point, then, what do you guys make of this? Terrence Mitchell and Troy Hill played 99 and 94% of their snaps, and they only made between $2 to $3 million.
Terrence Mitchell for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, so it's Terrence Mitchell on the Browns and Troy Hill from the Rams.
Yeah, I quite like Troy Hill. I quite like, and you can get him quite cheap too. You can probably get him for less than $5. I
agree.
I mean, just when we're talking about consistency, always being on the field, never coming off the field, just trying to find a base that we can work from. Certainly, those two guys were ever present last year.
So here's one for you.
Play for Dallas too, right?
What's that, sorry, Marcus?
Didn't Terrence Mitchell play for Dallas before?
It rings a bell. I'm pretty sure.
I'm not too sure. I'd check on that one. But
it rings a bell.
What about a guy, though? All right. And this one can be a bit controversial. And I have a safety that can be a bit controversial to talk about, too. But let's look at the cornerback from Tennessee, Desmond King. Now, he is a guy who has a lot of injury history, but you can get him cheap. Do you think he's just another Mo Claiborne for the Cowboys if we went and got him? Or do you think perhaps his injury woes are behind him?
What position would you play him at?
I think because of the way it's I'd play him at corner.
If you play him at corner, he's your 4th or 5th corner.
You think?
I don't think he can come. I think a rookie could beat him out easily.
He's had a lot of issues, and it seems to be that he's had back-to-back injuries, and since then he's had a lot of trouble being able to move. I like the Troy Hill one. I do like that option. The other one I looked at was Quinton Dunbar, the cornerback from Seattle. I don't know what you guys make of it. I think you could get this guy relatively cheap as well. Again, nagging injuries are what it's come down to. He was placed on IR as well. But he's young. He's young, and you can get him cheap, and he can produce. I don't know what you think. And we know all about him. He played at the Washington football team too.
Right.
I don't know if that you buy that, or do you think this is another guy where, again, we're getting down into the road of picking up injured players, and as we were talking about, known commodity is what you're after.
Solid guy. He could probably come in and compete. It would really depend on price for me on that one.
Yeah. And then another guy, I don't know what you think. I'll get your take on this guy, Marcus. Because he's certainly a guy that could fit for the Cowboys, but there's issues. The first one is I think he's going to be fairly expensive, double digits I'm looking at. And the other one is he plays for Washington. That's Ronald Darby.
I would probably pass on Darby.
Yeah, for the expense?
Yeah. I don't think he's worth the money.
Again, another ever present. He was always on the field. So the fact that he's always on the field, they're going to command decent salaries. So again, we've got to spend our money wisely.
Yeah.
But like you say, I mean, he's probably out of our price range. But in saying that, according to Over the Cap, he only made $3 million last year. So it's not astronomical numbers we're talking about.
But I would say, though, that he's... Go on, Marcus.
He gives that corner safety flex, too.
And you got to think you've got to overpay as well in free agency because you're trying to beat out your competitors. Yeah. Do you want to look at the safeties, and then I'll bring up your list, and then we'll
let me give you two corners that I really like, who I think will fit this game well, who may come cheap. I know a lot of people are gonna know this name because his last game was not good, but Kevin King from Green Bay. I'm really high on Kevin King. I know you guys are gonna think about that game and be like, "Oh, he's awful."
Oh yeah.
They changed the scheme in Green Bay in 2020, and they started running like almost a zero cover one defense. That's not his strong suit. If you go back to the 3 years before that, he had 5 sacks in 2019 when they ran their cover 3, cover 2 scheme. And then he had interceptions, not sacks. Then he had 2 interceptions the year before that, and then his rookie year was hurt. So when they put him in a scheme where he can bump and run and play more of a zone, he plays to his strengths. Green Bay let the Smith brothers go, and they put their corners on an island, and that is not his skill set.
Yeah.
If we get him back in a scheme like we run, I think he'll be the guy from 2019.
And you can get him cheap too.
Yeah, because
it's worth a gamble.
Because of that look you just made, when I brought his name up, his price tag is going to be very cheap. Because everybody remembers that guy.
I can see the play now. He got absolutely burned.
I mean, your biggest issue with Kevin King...
It makes perfect sense when you think about it.
My only concern with Kevin King is we've seen it as well. He can get pushed off if you're physical with him. He's easy to move.
Yeah.
Again, that depends on the coverage, though.
I was about to say I think that's a product of the coverage. When you got him, line and trying to jam and run with somebody, I don't think.
Okay. In terms of safety, and I'm going to bring your list up and let you talk about it for the last part of the segment. Here's a sneaky one for you, right? Because we've seen the Cowboys do this before with veteran cornerbacks. What do you feel about signing Patrick Peterson but playing him as your center field safety? It was worked before.
It will probably depend on the price.
On the price, yeah. So a good deal. You're going to get him for a good deal. Let's say that. Are you gonna do that for him? Keeps him in the big show.
If it was a really good deal, I would say yes, because like we talked about with Richard Sherman, he's going to bring that veteran presence. It's a position he's never played before. Like, it's hard to imagine him going from nose in the face, man-to-man corner to playing free safety in space. Everybody doesn't have that ability to make that transition like that. He may be awful as a safety. Like, he could have no clue what he's looking at, and we spent all this money and we're relying on him to be our guy at safety.
I mean, I say that because when you said with him in man-to-man coverage, when you look at him in man coverage, he struggled last year.
He struggled a lot last year, and people don't talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I was thinking that, where you move him into, so he's got a bit more freedom of movement down that road. Yeah. But I don't know what you think about this, right? I know we're trying to keep it in terms of known commodities and what have you. I don't like what some people are saying about Anthony Harris. I'm out on Anthony Harris altogether.
I am too. I thought I was the only one.
No, yeah, I'm out on him, man. Another one, ironically, I've finished with that before we get to your list. But one, I swing both ways on this one because I like the price, but I worry about the history, is Malik Hooker. I think the Cowboys...
I think it would be too expensive, would they not?
No. You would get him very cheap because of the injury history.
He has an awful injury history. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
6% really of snaps last year.
Yeah.
6%, how much? 6% of snaps.
I think he's only played 50% for his career. So
yeah.
But we're talking about the safety position, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But I mean, like, what's crazy is if you look at his rookie season, he was blowing it up.
Yeah.
He was like on fire. And then the last 2 seasons, you've just got injury history compounding everything for him. But I think he would be cheap. I think Malik Hooker is a better option than what we did last year with Clinton Dix.
Definitely.
I think he's already a better option than that. And if you get him cheap enough for, like, say, I don't know, $2 million, like you did with Clinton Dix, if he ends up not being that guy, and the injuries are too much. You do what you did with Clinton Dix. It was good enough then, so it could be good enough this year. If he doesn't and he makes it through, well, now you've got a starting safety on your roster who very well could be one of the best safeties in the league.
Yeah, I've got a question for you guys. What about the two safeties? And also, I've got 3 players in mind, and they're definitely on the lower spectrum of the, like, try and get them. I think personally is Keanu O'Neal from Atlanta, Carl Joseph, and Andrew Sandejo. Like, both of them. Like, I don't know what you guys are thoughts on a bit from, like, when it comes to Keanu O'Neal, he was probably, I thought, like, looking at his stats from last season, like, he's like had over 100 tackles as a safety, 3 QB
and he's
hits.
A first round pick. Keanu O'Neal's a first round pick.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be that expensive to get him. Like, when you really think about it.
He just hasn't lived it. He just never lived up to the first round.
And he is a Dan Quinn guy, and like the other guys, Carl Joseph and Sandijo, they had a great last season. The only thing with Sandijo, he's 34 years old, so you could probably write him off. Whereas Joseph's 28. Yeah, so
I was thinking that, and they're both in the same team, so maybe they try and keep at least one of them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because if you lose both, you're effectively readdressing your safety.
They probably will keep. If that's the case, they'll probably will keep Joseph for the youth factor, pretty much. Like I said, Sandijo is almost 35 years old.
Yeah.
So, and being that safety position, can really wear and tear on you.
Now, the good thing is our good old friend here, Marcus, he's done up a list of his free agents. We'll have a look at the list. We'll break it down, slag it off a bit, and then we'll call it a night. And
let me know which positions you want me to go to, because I have them all right here.
Okay. So these are your guys. So what is interesting when I looked at this straight away was you've got at the top of your list Xavier Woods. So
let me clear it up. When I made my list, I put the Cowboys player first so that you can see his name, his age, and how much he made last year. And then underneath him, I put all the other free agents, and I put them from the highest salary to the lowest salary last year.
Right.
So that's the order. It's not as in terms of who I want the most.
Who you want, that's cool. Because but the thing that popped out to me as well is you had the same guy we were just talking about, Malik Hooker. So it seems to be that, and you're seeing the same thing, 3 million. I had him around 2. So it's pretty much we're on the same ballpark there. But of all those guys there, who's the guy? I know you got to Jaquiski Tart up there, but I think the expense on him is a bit too much.
I agree.
But go for it. Of those guys, who's your favorite that you would say that's the guy I'm signing? It does not matter.
If it were me, I would go Trey Boston. I love Trey Boston as a player.
Okay, go for it. What is it that you like about him?
Smart guy. He causes turnovers every year. He's going to get you 3 or 4 interceptions. He can play free safety. He can play strong safety. Every team he's been to, he's been one of the leaders of the defense. I don't know why he can't stick with the team, because he changes every year. I think he may be too much of an alpha for most locker rooms. But that's what we need in Dallas, if that's the case.
Some leadership. Yeah, right. I would agree, actually. And as well, a bit of, because we talked about this in the season, a bit of aggression. Do you know what I mean? A bit of an attitude, because there was too much with the defenders picking the opposition players up and wiping their helmets down and making sure they're okay, shaking around. No, get a guy who's got a bit of an attitude, who's going to leave the guy in the dirt. Do you know what I mean? Right. For you, Paul, any of those guys standing out for you?
You know me, I'm more of a defensive lineman guy, so I am going to pass on to that question back onto Graham. I am opting out on this one.
Well, one name that does spring to mind is Demarius Randall.
Yes.
McCarthy drafted Randall. So he will know early stages of his career. Ricardo Allen, we'll all remember from Hard Knocks. He was actually released by the Falcons, but I think he kind of turned his career around. Again, we've discussed Hooker injury problems, but this is the kind of market the Cowboys are going to be shopping in because of Dak Prescott's deal. It's pure and simple. Of that list, Ricardo Allen's probably out of our price range.
Graham, last year he made $6.5 million. I think that number will be lower than that for this year. I just tried to put the last year's salary.
Oh, okay.
I think he'll be closer to 4 this year if I had to take a guess.
Because of the age.
Certainly a conversation.
Yeah.
Certainly a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he came
the only other guy who isn't on your list that I'm kind of interested in is AJ Bouye, but I'm just wondering, is that decline too much? You are sorry?
I was going to my cornerback list to see if I had him on there. No, I didn't put him on the corner list.
No, you do have Kevin King. That's quite interesting, though. And you got Patrick Peterson. So, but Patrick Peterson too expensive for you?
I think he's going to want at least $10 million, no matter where he goes and what position he plays.
Too expensive.
I think so.
It is a bit. But what about your defensive lineman? Let's get that so Paul can get in on this.
All right. Defensive tackle. I just did 1 text. I didn't do any 3 texts.
1 text is probably where I would be going anyway. Interesting, you got Shelby Harris. We've spoken about him. Snacks Harrison. I don't know. I'm not a fan of Snacks. I don't know why. I never have been. For me, of all the guys on the list, do you know what's ironic? Antoine Woods is the guy I'm just looking at going, there's my guy.
Yeah.
I'm kind of leaning, like, if we were to bring someone in out of that list of that free agency, I would say Shelby Harris, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
It makes more, like, even though he's 30 years old and he maybe a lot more money, but I think you're gonna guarantee at least get a good engine out of him, at least. So you could probably say Nunez Roches as well, but how much is his salary going to increase because of the Super Bowl win?
Exactly.
Even though he may. That's the problem with that one. So if it doesn't increase too much, then for sure I would try and maybe speak to Raheem for sure.
Are there any guys on there though that no matter what you would say, Marcus, like, nah, I'm completely out on him? Any of those guys at all? Doesn't matter. I'm out.
On this defensive
on that
tackle
list.
No, I wouldn't. But if I added Sue to the list, I would say probably Sue.
Yeah. You're the same as me.
Sue is probably the biggest no.
Yeah.
Is there any other positions though that you would say is quite important? You would aim for to try and stock up. Would linebacker be that spot, or
defensive end and linebacker?
Yeah. Defensive end, I tell you what. Then let's finish
for more depth.
We'll look at that then, and then we can start wrapping things up. Who's the guy? Vic Beasley? I'm just worried. Tack McKinley, which is quite ironic because he was a guy the Cowboys were touted. Yeah, and he was available for the Cowboys in the draft, and there was some talk before the draft of them taking him.
Right.
Go on then. You hit me with it, Paul. Who then instantly stands out to you?
I would definitely look towards like Harris and McKinley for many reasons. Is the age factor, but Dan Quinn's more the defensive coordinator rather than being the head coach, so he would actually be more hands-on with these guys than overseeing the whole team. So I think that would still have some type of influence as well. I liked how you've got Alden Smith at the top there for $2 million. Like, Bailey, it's the age factor. Okafor, again, you'll probably ask for much more than that because he's part of that Kansas City team. Like, it's just the way it is. And Morgan Fox, EA will probably be without a doubt the cheapest option with how the Rams are doing right now. But if it was me, I would even look at it would be between Harris and McKinley, my personal opinion.
See, now, for me, if I was going linebacker, I don't know what you think of this, Marcus, but for me, I would be looking at, like an early down thumper to try and stop the run. I notice he's not on your list. If it was for me, this is the direction we're going for in terms of price, and to fill that gap would be BJ Goodson from Cleveland.
Let me go to my Sam linebackers list. This is my Sam linebacker.
There you go.
Oh, you've got him on there.
Yeah.
There we go. There's this going on again. We're on the same line. But here's an ironic thing: Damian Wilson from Kansas City. Do you know what I mean?
I was just about to say that. It's like, oh, why did we let him go?
I know. Yeah, and now he was at a Super Bowl. And ironically, the other linebacker, the other linebacker they got, he's got a Super Bowl ring, and he was with the Cowboys. Oh man, we just seem to keep doing it to ourselves. But BJ Goodson, there's my guy. I would be an early down linebacker to try and block or assist in blocking the run. That's for me. You could go down the road of Matt Milano as well from Buffalo, but I think the price on him is going to be too high because he just had an. You what? Sorry.
I said I agree.
Yeah, he's going to be too expensive. He was actually playing really, really well for Buffalo, and then it just seemed to slip away on him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's the most. But is there anybody else, any other particular position, Marcus, you would aim for, or is that really what you're looking to do?
Sorry, Marcus. I've actually got one more name. I can't remember what position in linebacker he plays, but what about and Graham? You can put your 2 cents in this because I know your dad is a Green Bay fan. But what about Kirksley? Yep. Like, we could probably get him on the cheap.
Who is that?
Christian Kirksley.
Oh,
for Cleveland.
Okay.
Played for Cleveland.
I think he hugely underperformed in Green Bay. And like my understanding of it is he wasn't a free agent. They cut him.
So he is a free agent now as of February 19th.
There's my linebacker list.
There we go. Yeah.
I like the Alex Anzalone kid from New Orleans. I think he can play middle. I think he can play some wheel linebacker, especially if we move Jalen to Sam, like they say. Still young, athletic. I love Denzel Perryman.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
But I don't think he will come here and be a backup. He's too good.
Let me just try and get because I've got Denzel Perryman as well, like literally third linebacker on my list.
Yeah.
The reason I'm saying Kirksley as well, because he does have a leadership trait. He does have a lot of leadership traits because he really was the foundation of that Browns defense before he was traded.
Yep.
For all those years.
Like, here's my trouble with Denzel Perryman. I love him too, right? I don't know what you think. I just think Denzel Perryman's 20 years too late.
I can see that. He's an old school linebacker.
Yeah. And nowadays you're looking at them off-ball linebackers, a bit more quickness to clog and cover, where he's, you're two down, stuffer in the middle again, Right.
And if we were talking draft talk, I would talk about Nick Bolton and everything you say about Nick Bolton from Missouri. I just point you to Denzel Perryman, same guy.
Yeah. I see where you're going. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that is a nice free agent review there. We quite enjoy your list. And obviously we quite enjoy your time as well, Mr. Marcus.
And
it's been a pleasure as always having you with us, smiling away over there in Tennessee. How are things though in Tennessee? Is everything calm, cool and collective, or as crazy as it is over here?
Oh no, things are going great right now. We just had a big snowstorm come through, a rare snowstorm in Memphis. So we got like 9 inches of snow, which is unheard of. So that started to thaw out, and now we have hit spring. It looks like our mask mandates may be getting lifted in a couple of weeks, possibly. The vaccines are flowing, so people are starting to get a little bit more comfortable being outside. So we'll see if we've weathered the storm or if we're headed for another bad season.
Yeah, and you could tell Brandon as well to stop sending me and Paul bottles of moonshine that he's got.
Right.
It's making us very jealous over here, especially when he does the peach and the apple ones.
See, he's celebrating early.
Yeah, without a doubt. Big shout out to Brandon, man. We miss you, dude. We miss you, mate.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, there's another guy who's going to be joining us on something we've had planned to drop today. So we'll quickly run through this and we'll let you go, Brandon. First shout out is to Cowboys Experience. Make sure if you're going to a game this year, you book it through Cowboys Experience. They've got game day tickets, stadium tours, and tailgate parties you won't want to miss. And the big news that dropped this week was about our draft day show, which is for the NHS, for all the work that they've done. Make sure you go watch the hype video that we dropped. Marcus is going to be joining us. I asked him the question, funnily enough. I said, look, do you want to come on? He said, listen, man, whatever you're doing, I'll do it. Yeah. You didn't know it was a 24-hour show. So I'm pretty much suspecting you're not going to do the full show with us now.
I'll do as much as I can. I love
that's all we asked.
Yeah. I mean, like we said to you, it's a free invite. We've got a ton of guests. Marcus is one, and Brandon we spoke about is another. Yeah. We will be putting the guest list up because there's players, Cowboys creators, Cowboys staff, 24-hour charity event all on draft day. So make sure you get involved with us. We've got some giveaways as well, some UK Cowboys gear we're looking to get in as well. So should be fun. And we'll have Marcus on it for 22 hours. So
I'll be here.
Yeah. I think if he was to start at 7:30 with us, that would be like 1:30 in the morning your time.
Okay.
So
that's a great, Austin. We will provide those details at a later date.
Yes, on the show it'll all be there.
On the show, we will post we'll confirm everything as we lead up coming up to the draft. So don't worry about that, dude.
Yeah, you don't have to panic. It will not be quiet. But thank you very much for joining us and seeing us again. It will be very interesting to have you back on, which will be the 24-hour show. I'll give you the details on all of that. But it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, to have you on again. As we said before, you and Brandon are probably our two closest Cowboys creators that we talk with and work with and all the rest of it, bouncing off each other's shows. So we will speak to you again. But from myself, from Paul, Graham, and our special guest, Marcus, Bluff City Cowboys, make sure you go and follow them. We will see you all again next week.
See you next time.
Take care.